to speak the truth to power. This political dimension is very interesting, especially with regards to psychedelics and such, and the politics around psychedelics, but I don't have time to get into that here. And the second requirement is that it requires sustained practice, so that the technique becomes second nature and your relationship with truth becomes more deep. And this points to the idea that what philosophy is in effect an ethics of attitude. It's not so much a morality, this is right, this is wrong, but rather this is the technique that you use to change yourself so that you become a good person. We have an example from Michael Rinella's book, Pharmakon, which is about Plato, drug culture, and identity in ancient Athens. In Plato's Symposium, the character Pausanias says at one point that, during his speech on love, that it is generally true of anything that simply of itself it is neither good nor bad. Take what we're doing now, for example, that's to say drinking or singing or talking. None of these is good or bad in itself, but each becomes so depending on the way that it is done. Well and rightly done, it is good. Wrongly done, it is bad. His perspective is not idiosyncratic and encapsulates quite well how ancient Greece problematized the difficulties encountered with behaviors arising out of intoxication. Well, this really got me into ideas about how entheogens are also part of an ethics of attitude and how important attitude is in creating positive outcomes. And so I see ayahuasca as a spiritual technique. And it has some of the elements that I will focus on some of the elements that are important in ayahuasca culture that I think are very much in alignment with these ideas. There's preparation, the dieta, and also the brewing of ayahuasca. I have to hurry a little bit, so I will skip the quotes, but you can get them later if you want. There are certain rules and recommendations for people that prepare for ayahuasca, and these are part of the technique of the self that is surrounded with ayahuasca use in many different cultures. There's also a transformation. Let's see, where am I? The drinking ayahuasca transforms the person. It helps the person gain insight, access to the truth. It gives healing, it gives love, that really changes the lives of the person. And the result of drinking ayahuasca, in my opinion, as part of a spiritual technique, is an ethical life where one does good. And it also has a social dimension to it. That the healing is not only personal but also interpersonal, so relations are saved and such. So at the same time, there's phenomena in the world that are like bad practices of ayahuasca. There's shamanic attacks, there's black magic, there's people using ayahuasca for personal gain. And I think that by using such a technique of the self with regards to ayahuasca can help us to avoid these problems. And it really provides a relationship between subject and the truth. It can transform, and it requires courage and practice. But it will only benefit you if you are willing to do this work and to really make it part of your technique of the self, your care for yourself. And the way that cultures use ayahuasca is it's basically creating selfless subjects that, and this is actually the result of the technique of the self of ayahuasca. It creates an ethical person that goes beyond his own limits to with love, compassion, and so on. I think that an important distinction that we need to make, and this is the final thought I would like to leave you with, that we should not focus too much on tradition. Tradition it can be a misnomer. We should rather focus on discipline. Ayahuasca, the disciplined use of ayahuasca can be very good, and traditional use is not necessarily good or so on. Only when it is accompanied by a discipline, it becomes so. So that was in the time? Good. Short and sweet. Any questions?
So you were arguing that ayahuasca, well, you said it can be used as something like for personal growth and becoming a better person, but also you mentioned it can be used as a bad thing.
Yeah.
People use it for black magic, to harm other people,
Yeah.
to help other people get money. So in which way ayahuasca is then better for some becoming a good person than a religion? Because religion as well, you know, as a discipline can be seen as something very, that, you know, kind of cultivates good, but also we know
Yeah.
that,
Yeah, well, in this model, it would be rather similar. I think my inclination is to say that ayahuasca can teach us to be good if we want to, and religion as well. But it really depends on the attitude that you cultivate by using it. If you use ayahuasca to learn about yourself and to become more compassionate, more loving, then it is good. But it's a fine line. There's many field reports about shamans that use it as a way to attack people. And even the shamans that heal people, they often attack the person that made this person ill. So there's many ways in which this can be modified in a way that is more healing, more loving, I think. One more question.
You say don't focus too much on tradition, but can you say it is also problematic to take the ayahuasca out of a traditional setting?
If it's okay to take ayahuasca outside of a traditional setting, yeah. I think as long as there is some form of discipline with it, so proper preparation, proper respect for the experience, and also a willingness to integrate the experience, to integrate the lessons that you've learned. If you incorporate such a discipline, then I think it's not a problem to drink outside of a tradition. But yeah, this requires work as well.
Yes, but you also say that tradition will help you to keep a certain discipline.
Yes, yes, that's why they are traditions. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.